take it away. This is Alice Young. She's from Berkeley. We have Henry Sai and Claudine Lima from UC Law SF. And so we're going to get started with your questions. So guys, our first question is a really, really basic one. How to apply to law school?
Wow. How much time do we have? I can start if you want. Sure. So for applying for law school, you can kind of think of the process as starting about a year before you actually want to start law school. So law schools most of them start in August, same as with college. And so your application process will start about a year before then, considering you do have to take a standardized test. For most law schools, it's either going to be the LSAT or the GRE for those that accept that. So you're going to want to figure out when to take that. It's offered 10 times a year for the LSAT. The GRE is offered more frequently. Figuring out when you want to take that, how you're going to study for that is sort of number one. And then putting together the rest of your application components, which I think we'll probably talk about in the other questions, like your essays, getting your letters of rec together. And then you're going to want to create an LSAC account. That's the Law School Admissions Council. They administer the LSAT, and then that's also how you're going to apply to law schools. So you'll create the account, and then you will be able to apply electronically through LSAC to any law school that you're looking to apply to. And most law school applications are open beginning in September. And then the deadlines vary by school. For Berkeley, our deadline's February 10th. And then I can hand it over to Henry to kind of, I don't know when your deadline is, if you want to add any other things that I might have forgotten.
Sure. No, I don't think you forgot much at all, really. But our deadline is April 15th, I believe. So sometimes we may extend it, sometimes we won't. So I would say err on the side of caution and try to apply early regardless. That means we have the most amount of space and the most amount of money to give away. And so just think about early I think that's one of the questions is like, is there an early decision or is there a priority deadlines? Make a spreadsheet and kind of keep those keep track of those. And that way you can have everything in one place instead of trying to memorize when everybody's applications are due. How about your MSL?
So I work for the MSL program, which is an alternative to law school. It's for students who are interested in getting a master's of studies in law, but they don't necessarily want to become practicing attorneys. For us, the application is a direct application. You'll find it on our website, so you don't have to go through LSAC. You just apply directly to our department, our school, but also be mindful of the deadlines. We have them as well.
Thank you, guys. Our next question is, what is something you wish someone told you when you were preparing to apply to law school? If there is anything.
Uh-oh.
I don't think either of us went to law school, so I'm not sure if we can really answer that question.
But I guess I could say what a lot of students have told me. And so we have also students that work in our office, and since I get this question a lot, I ask them what they wish they would have known. I think it's one thing I do hear very often is how intensive the reading is. So when they wish they would have known that ahead of time to kind of prepare for that a little bit better. Right. So I guess it meshes with the question, what should I do before law school? Right before, like now I applied, what should I do to prepare? One thing is to just really read as much dense material as you can. Current events, politics, whatever it is, dense material to kind of get your brain, it's like training your muscles kind of thing. So that's one thing. And another thing is it's a lot about your interactions with your colleagues. And so talking to your colleagues, being networking, community building, that's super important in law school as well. So kind of prepare your mind for that extroverted side of you to be there for you when you need to connect with your other students.
That's great advice. I think as far as the application process of what I hear most commonly from applicants and from current students is just be mindful of like all of the additional essays that might be required or scholarship essays when you're looking at where you're going to apply and like looking at your spreadsheet of the components that you need, because every law school is going to require the basics of like a personal statement, the resume, and the letters of rec, but most law schools also are going to have several like addenda that you can submit or that you have to submit in order to apply for scholarships. So that would be my other thing, is just make sure you're researching, number one, if there are specific scholarships that that school offers that have different deadlines or different requirements, and if there's essays, and then other than that, are there any other optional statements that you might need to prepare so that you're not rushing to do those at the last minute, but that you can already start working on those pieces. Because a lot of schools have like a why Berkeley statement or a diversity statement or optional fun questions. Like it's really, especially in the last couple of years, I'd say those have gotten really popular amongst law schools. So just be mindful when you're thinking about, preparing to apply, that there are going to be additional essays that you're going to need to write.
Okay, the next question is, what kind of letters of recommendation hold the most weight? i.e. professors versus advisors versus professional contacts versus peers who have worked on extracurricular projects with you? Or what are the main ones you guys think are the most important or hold the most weight?
I would say academic letters are going to be the most important. Most law schools are going to want to see at least one academic letter, especially if you're in school right now or you recently graduated in the last few years. We like to see 2 academic letters. And when I say an academic letter, I mean from a professor or a TA who has seen you in a classroom setting. So we would prefer that over like an advisor who might have not actually taught you in a class. So those would take precedent. And then sometimes people submit like 1 or 2 additional professional letters from like a work supervisor or an internship or something like that.
Yeah, I would agree. I mean, especially since you all are in school right now, definitely make those connections with your professors early on. If you have time, do that ASAP. If there's a professor you know that you really feel they're really great and they understand you and you have a great connection, so keep that going until you need that letter of rec. It's great when you can have that ahead of time instead of trying to remember me in your class like 2 years ago, like I sat here. They're not going to remember, so just kind of think of that ahead of time. So professional letters, I would also agree with Alice. Have those ready if you need to, right? Maybe you're going to take some time after school is over, after you graduate, and then you have one. Start thinking about that. Have that ready if you need it. But academic ones are preferred.
I guess in addition to that, say for graduate school, if you are interested in submitting letters of recommendation, really find somebody that knows you quite well rather than finding somebody who maybe has a high status. So for example, if you volunteered with like a state senator, rather than having somebody like the state senator do your letter of recommendation, you might want to do your direct supervisor because they probably work with you on a daily basis as opposed to somebody that hardly knows anything about you.
Thank you. Can you apply early decision for one school only?
Well, I guess it depends on what sort of early decision it is. Most schools are going to offer a binding early decision. So that's what Berkeley offers. And because it's binding, you can only apply to one school, because what that means is that if you are admitted, you have to immediately withdraw all of your other applications and you are committed to attend Berkeley. So it's not an option for those of you who want to sort of wait to see where you're admitted or to weigh like different scholarship options. It's really for like if you've already done all that research ahead of time and kind of know what your top school is. Some of them come with scholarships, some of them don't come with scholarships. That's something you're going to want to research as well. And then there are some schools that offer just an early action type application where they just give you a decision earlier, but it's non-binding. So just read, train yourself of what you're going to be doing in law school and as an attorney, and just read the fine print, like read what the instructions are, and it'll say in there if it's binding or if it allows you to apply to other schools.
Yeah, and some schools have both, right? So you have early decision, binding, and you can now go through the regular application process. So just make sure you're applying to what you want to apply to. For us, we don't have a binding early anything really. So basically, if you apply, about every 6 to 8 weeks, we'll send out a batch of decisions. So if you apply early, you'll hear back early, but you have until May to decide.
How do I best prepare myself for law school applications? Specifically, are there any courses, volunteer experiences, types of internships, or extracurricular activities I should be undertaking? Are internships required to have a higher chance of getting into law school?
Yeah, I would say there's no specific type of experience. Not everyone can get a law type legal field experience. If you can, great. If you have to find some way to volunteer or to work, either way, that's definitely, it'll look good. But not everyone can. So whatever it is that you really are passionate about, I would say please do that. The reason is because number one, you're going to stick with it. Number two, you might be able to dive a little bit deeper and find ways to connect that to law school or the legal field, or maybe some traits or characteristics that can translate into the legal field, like analysis, communication skills, working in a team, being a leader, stuff like that, that you can really relate back to law school. Those are things that we like to see. So if you tend to do better if you really love what you're doing, right? So feel free to do that. And then kind of think about, well, then how do I kind of show myself or put my best foot forward for law school application when I can meld the two together. That might be the best way.
Yeah, I would agree with everything Henry said. There is no one way to prepare for law school. And I think, so for law school is very different than I think a lot of other like professional schools, like med school, for example. If you were applying to med school, you would have a whole list of classes that they want you to take. They generally want to see some sort of like clinical experience so that everybody coming in has that same sort of background. Law school is not like that at all. Otherwise, we would tell you ahead of time, these are the classes you should take, you should have legal experience, you should do this. So we don't have anything like that. So when you come to law school, there is no expectation that you have specific legal experience. So for that reason, we encourage you to just pursue whatever your passion is, like Henry mentioned. So we literally have students coming in from every different kind of major, chemical engineering, English, history, art history. We had a grad from the Culinary Institute of California a few years ago. We've had professional ballet dancers who've been 10 years, as a ballerina coming into law school. So we are not going to be focused specifically on, how much legal experience do you have? I think we're more concerned about like, what is the quality of the experience that you're going to be bringing to the law school. So find something that you're interested in, find an internship that you're excited about, and do those things. And that's what we're looking for.
Alice, I think this one is mostly for you. The question is, what are the steps needed to attend a law school like UC Berkeley or even an Ivy League?
I wouldn't say it's probably any different than any other law schools, other than that we have like a little bit earlier deadlines. So we have a little bit of a tighter deadline. We have a February 10th deadline. The main thing that we're looking for is the same as all other law schools. We're looking at, number one, can you do the work that's going to be required of you in law school? So we're going to be looking through your transcripts, multiple years of grades that you've gotten in your classes. How well are you performing in your classes? What types of classes did you take? Did you challenge yourself to take higher classes instead of, taking a bunch of intro classes your senior year that are going to kind of pad your GPA? Those are all the things that we're looking for. And then the second and third thing that we're really asking ourselves is, what are you going to add to our specific law school? What are you going to add to the classroom experience? What are you going to add later on to the legal profession? And then are you somebody that we want or need in our classroom? And those are going to be answered in the rest of sort of the narrative pieces of your application, telling us about yourself, what your interests are, what you've done, and what you hope to do in law school and beyond. So I wouldn't say, again, that there's a specific thing to apply for the top schools that you're going to be doing differently. Of course, we're looking for that you've done really well in your classes. So, hopefully getting a high as GPA as you can. Developing bonds with your professors so that you have at least 2, strong letters of recommendation where we can really tell that this professor knows you well. And then for the standardized tests as well, obviously trying to do the best that you can on either the GRE or the LSAT, but also keeping in mind, in our class profile, the medians are published there for the GPA and the LSAT, but that's not the end of the story. So if you're not performing at that level, it doesn't mean you're not going to get admitted. We are just giving you an idea of where the 50th percent of our class lies.
Awesome. And the next question is, what are some things that stand out in an application? What makes me a stronger candidate?
I could start. Sure. I think one thing that really stands out besides just the numbers that we'll see for me when I'm reading applications, the numbers are the first thing I see, so it's a good first impression that I get from a student. However, the thing that will really help me understand you a little bit better is usually the personal statement and the letters of record, right? Those can really help contextualize who you are and also your motivation. Law school is really hard. It's expensive and it takes a lot of time. So if you can kind of articulate your motivation and your reason why, number one, it helps me know that at 2 a.m. and you're really tired and you got to go to bed and wake up in a few hours, can you do it again? And can you do it again the next day and the next day? And so when I can understand your motivations and who you are and why you're doing this, it really gives me a sense of okay, I understand where you're coming from and I would love for you to be at my campus. That's the kind of student that could stand out for me. So it's not any one thing, it's not any one number, it's a bit nebulous, it's about who you are and how you can present yourself and talk about your experiences and also your motivations.
I guess for the master's program, we do not require an LSAT, but we do holistically take a look at the application or the applicant as a whole. So, great GPA, good letters of recommendation, amazing statement of purpose. So we kind of, for us in my department, for the MSL, we kind of look at the applicant a little bit more holistically as compared to law school that may have a little bit more weight in LSAT scores. Would you agree?
Yeah, I think we try to do as holistically as we can, but yeah, those numbers also matter quite a bit. And sometimes for certain law schools, money is attached to those numbers as well. So take a look at the medians, the average scholarships that are given out, look at the 509 report for all the law schools that are ABA accredited. That's a great research tool and kind of gives you an idea of where am I standing amongst the applicants of that law school.
Yeah, I would agree. We look holistically at applications as well. And when I review applications, I actually start with the narrative pieces before I look at the numbers. So your CAS report, which is the Credential Assembly Service Report, is prepared by LSAT, and that has all of your transcripts in it, so they calculate the GPA for us. It has your LSAT score, if you've taken that. It has your letters of recommendation, and that's all sort of packaged together in one sort of application piece. So that's secondary of what I look at. I start with everything that you submit in your application. So your personal statement, your resume, any of the optional statements. This year we have a required video statement, so I look at that too. So for me, that's the first impression is answering those questions that I said before. Can you do the work? And then are you somebody that we want at the school? And what are you going to add? There are plenty of times where I start reading that and I'm just this person isn't using the space correctly. I don't really get a sense of who this is. And then they have great numbers and they're not somebody who's admitted for those reasons. So that's why I always want to emphasize that those narrative pieces, the resume, all of that is very important because that is what's going to, especially if you do have like a lower GPA or a lower LSAT, that's what's going to make the difference at the end between you and somebody that has similar numbers and things. So yeah, just make sure you put a lot of time into crafting those statements.
The next question is, do I need an amazing GPA to get into law school?
I think we probably already answered that question. I mean, do the best that you can in your classes. That, while you're all students here, so, challenge yourself to take your classes, and that's your number one priority as a student. So we definitely I see sometimes people writing an addendum that like they took on too much outside of the classroom. They decided to be a president of a club, or they joined, 6 different clubs, and they were just stretched too thin, and then their academics suffered. Academics are number one. That is very important for the law school admissions process. It shows us over, a 3, 4, 5 year period, how you did as a student. And that's kind of what we are going to assume, like how you are going to perform in law school as a student. So it's definitely important in that that's what you should prioritize. But I mentioned before, it is holistic. So we definitely admit students that have a lower GPA for specific reasons that you're going to bring up in your application and you're going to advocate for. There are many things that could make somebody have a lower GPA, like familiar obligations. Maybe you had to, you were taking care of a family member that was sick. Maybe you had something going on health-wise. Maybe you were in the wrong major when you started and you thought about going to med school, and then you took organic chemistry and realized that's not the right path for you, and you switched to something else, and then you did extremely well. Like, not to say that GPA is just the one number. I think there is a lot more to it. So if there is anything in your case where you feel like you need to explain, that's what those addendums are for.
I agree with 100% what Alice was saying. I would just add that another way to look at it is an amazing GPA could mean a bunch of different things for you personally, right? And so depending on what you're going through, what else you have going on, that amazing GPA could be different than somebody else's, right? So it's hard to say, aim for that one number, okay, fine, aim for 4.0, sure, right? That's an amazing GPA. But that might not be possible for you, right? And not because you're not capable, but it could be other reasons. So use the addendum, use the personal statements to give us more context. In our brochure, the one I sent out, it's a LEOP EOP program that we have. So there's more context that you can give us as well through that program. So take a look at that.
Any advice for older folks applying to law school? Is age a factor at all?
I feel like it makes you more awesome. Last year we had a 72-year-old get admitted and a 19-year-old. So, go figure. The 72-year-old is a retired architecture professor. So, hey, you do you.
That's great to hear. Yeah, ours was similar. For our class profile for this entering class, it ranged from 19 to 51. So we definitely have all, people coming in at all stages of life, whether they just decided to go to school later, maybe they've been working for a long time. It's not something, I don't remember if the question, what was the exact question?
Advice for older folks applying to law school. Is age a factor?
Oh, it's okay. As far as advice, I think it can definitely be a plus sometimes. You're coming in with all of this additional experience that's going to add to the classroom. So the piece of advice just with the resume, this is going to vary by school because just some schools have more strict limits for what they want to see in a resume. For ours, we don't have a specific page limit. So sometimes when I see people who have been out of school for quite some time, they apply with like their professional one-page resume and it doesn't include anything from college. So we actually like to see everything, like everything other than high school. So that's my biggest thing that I encourage those like sort of professional applicants to make sure you're including like back when you went to college as much as you can remember of extracurriculars and things like that, because it helps to give context when we look at your transcripts to see, what else were you balancing with those, with the classes that you took.
For us, because it's a Master's of Studies in Law, it honestly ranges a lot. We have people who just graduated from their bachelor's degree, go directly into their graduate school, and then we have people who are working for 5-10 years before they decide to do so. So for us, everyone is encouraged to apply for the Master's of Studies in Law program.
Okay, last question for acceptance questions. When do I start applying, and should I apply to multiple schools?
I think we kind of covered this.
Yeah. Earlier the better is what I'm thinking. I guess for us, try to aim for December. That's probably a safe bet to apply by December. But we have a later deadline than Berkeley does. It's not like you can't get in if you apply after that. It's the best, it's the most number of seats available still, and we have a lot of scholarship money left and all that stuff. So I'd say aim for that.
Yeah, we have a similar sort of recommended, like if you can try to apply by the end of November or early December. The reason being is that pretty much all law schools operate on a rolling admissions basis, which means as you send in applications, we start reviewing them and issuing decisions. So right now, our application opens in September. We're already reviewing applications, and our first decisions will go out probably early November, so in less than a month. And so, yeah, so we're already in the thick of it. And so the longer you wait to apply, like if you wait until February, close to our deadline to apply, we probably already read and admitted like 80 to 90% of our class. And keep in mind, last year, I think we had 1,000 people apply in the last day before our deadline. So we get a lot of applications at the end. I know it takes a lot of time to get everything together, but we have a lot more applications to read. So we have a huge backlog, and we may only have a very limited amount of seats left in our class. So it just gets a lot more competitive the longer you wait. So as much as you can, like aim to have like that sort of November, December as like your actual deadline to get your materials into schools.
Also, just a general observation, a lot of times during election years, the application numbers go up. So more people apply. So just know that. So that means you're going to be one of even more students, right? So just kind of keep that in mind. That's why being early might be good.
Because again, ours is not, it's a graduate program. We do have a little bit more flexibility in terms of timeline. Our final deadline for students to get in for the fall term is usually around May, June. So you have plenty of time, at least with our master's program. But again, we do encourage people to apply early. We have more scholarship money in the beginning of the year. And then also, there's a lot of preparation that it takes to actually, before you even start your first day of classes. And that's handling like your financial aid, signing up for classes, getting academic advising. So, don't think as your acceptance day as the finish line. It's actually the starting line. And there's a lot more work to be done before you even start your first day of class.
Okay, moving on to the essay questions. Is writing about a personal struggle a good strategy? When writing about this topic, what do you recommend avoiding? Should a personal statement include the type of law one wants to practice? It's a mouthful, so we'll just handle that first.
We get this question a lot, like a lot of questions around the personal statement and what to write about, because most schools don't really have a specific prompt for you to follow. And so you're really just talking about yourself. And so some students talk more about like their whole journey to law school, beginning from like how they grew up, how that influenced sort of their journey to applying to law school. Some applicants talk more about a recent experience in a class or in a job that they were like confronted with and they tackled, or that like changed their trajectory or changed their perspective about something, and kind of go more in on that specific topic. And so I've seen it done in all sorts of different ways. So there's no one answer I can give as far as sort of what's the best way. We also get asked this specific question a lot about like adversity and, what if I do want to address something like that in my application, without it sounding like a sob story. So my answer to that is always like, this is your chance to advocate for yourself in your application. And there are plenty of areas to do that, either in the personal statement or it might be better in one of the addenda. That's going to be hard to say in a general sense because every school has their own instructions about those sorts of things. So I think it depends on, like, look at the addenda that are offered by each school. For example, we have one specifically about your academic history or standardized testing history. And so if you want to address one of those things, I think it would be better addressed in the addendum rather than in your personal statement. But advocate for yourself and always like focus more on your strengths. Like explain, you know, what happened, but you're going to want to focus on like, what did you, you know, how did you grow from that incident? What did you learn? How are you better for it? And again, why is that something that we would want to see in our school? So always circle back to like ending on a strong point and like, what are the other things in the application that we should be looking at? Maybe if your GPA is lower or your LSAT is low or something like that.
I think something to focus on what Alice was saying is that why, right? Your motivation and why are you doing this? If it is because of adversity, is something challenging or whatever, then write about that. But if your core why is not that, it could be something else, that's what I want to hear. So there's no real one size fits all, one advice I could say, write about that and it's going to work. Don't listen to Reddit. Don't go there, you'll just start crying. And so keep it to what is important to you, right? Why that motivation is really can help contextualize everything, frame everything in a way where it's moving forward, right? So you're not just stuck in a moment in time and you're having a sob story and you're just explaining about some terrible situation. But that why is going to move you forward into this is my movement forward, this actionable thing that I want to do, right? So whatever it is, even if it's not adversity, whatever, that why is going to help you frame your essay, your personal statement for the right audience, which is us, right? We're not your counselors, we're not your therapists, we're not whatever, but you're writing this for a very specific reason to get into law school, right? So consider your audience, and yeah.
Okay, so you mentioned not going to Reddit. Is there anything else that people should avoid in their essay?
Oh yeah, don't write about Reddit, right? I can't think of anything to avoid. I guess one thing is don't spend so much time on like your childhood. You know, there could be things that led you to want to be in law school since you were young, sure. But it should be really, the time frame should be about college-ish time, if not a little bit after, if you're in grad school or if you take some time off or whatever, but more recent, that's more who you are now, right? That it should be. And so that could be a lot more helpful than spending 1, 2, 3 pages on when you were little.
I guess in addition to that, I know there's kind of a rise in using AI to create personal statements and such. A lot of schools now have ways to check those things. So certainly use like ChatGPT as a resource, but don't have it write your full personal statement or anything else for you, because there are ways for people to find out and it could disqualify you for plagiarism.
Yeah, some law schools have very strict rules on that. And for us, we don't have any specific rule against it. However, I have tried using ChatGPT to write a personal statement, and I've also asked my students to do so too, that work in our office. And really what comes out is very generic. Very generic. And like I've been doing this for 11 years now. Law school admissions 4, but like reading personal statements, it just falls flat. It gives me the information I need, sure, okay, but it just falls flat, right? And so there's no human piece to it. But yeah, so just be careful when you're using that for us. Yeah,
every school, as far as the AI thing, again, you're gonna wanna check with every school you're applying to. Some explicitly like do not want you using it at all and are gonna run things maybe through a checker. Ours, we just have a statement about basically like generative AI. We just want you to make sure that it's all your original work. and we see something like ChatGPT is the same as like Grammarly or something. Like if you can run it for edits and things like that, but it shouldn't be literally spitting out your whole statement for you. But yeah, some schools like will don't want you to use it at all. So just make sure you're looking at all of those things. The only other tip, I guess, as far as writing, what I see a lot of students make mistakes on is if you are going to mention the school name anywhere in your personal statement or in your why law school statement or anything like that, just make sure it's the right school for the right application. Because we get a lot that are like, Stanford Law is my top choice. And I'm like, well, great. Like, hopefully you go there then, because this is for Berkeley. Yeah, or vice versa. Yeah. So that doesn't look great. And then also make sure the school is spelled correctly. Berkeley, for example, has 3 E's. I cannot tell you how many people misspell Berkeley right in their application multiple times. And that just, is a pet peeve of mine. So
that's a wrong Berkeley, right? That's a music school?
Well, the music school is with 2 E's at the end. Most people just leave off the E before the Y, or I've seen it all sorts of different ways. But just make sure, if you're writing the school name, is it spelled correctly and is it for the right school? Because again, you're going to be uploading multiple essays with each application, and you're going to be using, versions of the same sort of personal statement or essays. And so just make sure you are double checking when you're uploading that all of those are correct.
For us, it's sometimes we get applications that says UCSF, that is a medical school, a hospital.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yes, to be aware of that. And also one thing I would like to say is that UC Law SF used to be formerly UC Hastings. So, make sure that you're mindful of the name change as well, and don't refer to us as the old school unless it's in parentheses.
I guess one thing I would add is it's not just because we're uptight or something like that we care about all these things. It shows that your dedication to detail, right? And also you're going to be writing a ton in law school and as a lawyer. And you don't want to file something to a judge, to a court, or whatever with a bunch of typos, not really what you meant, you didn't edit it, all that stuff. It could be in perpetuity. It could be forever used in something. And, 100 years from now, your grandkids are looking. It's like, oh, that was grandma's brief. But, oh, my God, there is so much typos in there, right? Like, she couldn't spell whatever, come on. So you don't want that to happen. But it does show, the attention to detail that is really important in law school.
Thank you, guys. Transitioning to questions about the LSAT. If someone takes the LSAT twice, do both scores count or only the higher one?
It's different for school to school, so check. For us, we'll look at your highest one, but we're going to see all of them. So we're going to see a trend maybe, or up and down. If you want to explain something, we'll see everything. But for us, it's the highest one that will count.
Or is this the same policy?
Nice. If you don't get into the school of your preference, is it better to stick with the one you did get accepted into or retry for a higher LSAT score?
Wow, that's a big question.
It's like personal preference.
Yeah, right? I feel like we get this question all the time. Like I've been having a lot of advising sessions with reapplicants that are applying again this year that applied last year and were not successful. Either were, their application was denied or they were placed on the wait list and were not admitting from the wait list. And so they're, either kind of now or in the spring when they're making these decisions, they're going about, what do I do? And a lot of them were admitted to other schools. So I think it's really about, like as Henry said, it's kind of personal preference as far as, the main thing is make sure you're happy at whatever law school you go to. Sometimes they're like, oh, well, I got accepted to this school. I'm going to go there and I'm going to transfer out. And that's never a guarantee. You just don't know how you're going to do in law school. And it is completely different than, probably what you're used to in college. Just the way of teaching, the way they grade. It's heavily involved in final exams rather than like projects that you're going to be doing throughout the year. And so a lot of people, even students that did extremely well in undergrad, find law school very demanding and very stressful. And so if that's your plan, I would say that's not great. So if you, at the end of the day, are just not happy with the school you're going to go to, then you can reapply. You know, it'll take another year. It'll take a lot of money as well to reapply, potentially retake the LSAT or sign up for a prep course, which costs money to, you know, get a higher score. And then again, your admission for the next cycle is not guaranteed either. So, you know, it's a really nuanced question. I think it depends a lot on what your goals are, and how you feel about the options that you do have, and looking at those honestly.
I agree.
What year should I take the LSAT? I'm presuming they mean that they're going to go to law school right after undergrad in this question.
Okay. Well, your LSAT is good for 5 years. So kind of plan accordingly. If you're going to take some time off or whatever, then maybe, adjust your when you should take that exam. Yeah, I would say whenever you feel like you're ready is when you should take it. It doesn't make sense. Some schools don't like to see too many LSAT exams. Some schools will average your LSAT scores. So kind of do that, start with the end in mind, which schools you're looking at and then what their policies are.
Yeah, I would agree when you're ready, and I think that is based on your personal schedule. I see most commonly for students coming like directly from undergrad that are going to be applying their senior year of college, they sort of take it over the summer or like in August, September, you know, so that you're ready then to apply in the fall. But that also depends on what you have going on that summer. You know, if you're going to be interning, you know, on the Hill in DC, and that's going to be a really stressful job or something, you probably don't want to also be deciding to take the LSAT at that time. And you might want to move it up to like your spring semester, or vice versa. If you are like, you know, engaging in research, or you're taking some really tough classes and you don't have the time, then you might want to earmark that summer to kind of study and take the LSAT. And then the only other thing to keep in mind is that it is very common for students to take the LSAT more than once. I would say the majority of applicants I read have taken it 2 or even 3 times. It's not an easy exam by any means. So just factor that in as well when you're thinking about when to apply, when to take it. That, you know, if you take it in August or September, it takes about 3 weeks for you to get your score back. And so there's a very quick turnaround on if you need to take it again in like November, or, you know, for us, like January is the very last exam we would take for each year. And that's kind of the not recommended to leave it till January. So if you do need to retake it, just look at like, what would be the next exam that I would take if I have to retake it, if I get my score back and it's just below what I was doing on all my tests and everything.
Yeah, we don't have January as our last time to take it. However, as we mentioned before, it's better to apply earlier than later. And so aim for that, right? Aim for that December, January to be done. Then you don't have to worry about it anymore.
We got a lot of questions about immigration and DACA this year. So is there any advice for first generation students on how to apply for law school?
For first gen students, I mean, the first thing that comes to mind for Berkeley specifically is that we do have a full tuition scholarship for first gen students. So if you're the first to graduate from college in your family, that's about 10 students a year that get it, and it's full tuition. But it does have an earlier deadline of December 15th, and you have to have taken the LSAT or GRE by November. So that's one of those where the caveats where I said, you know, don't just look at the final deadline, look if there's any scholarships. So students get that, and it comes with a support program. And we also have a first generation professionals group at the school as well, which is a whole community of students who are the first in their family to go to law school. And they have a lot of events to mainly like networking. Like Henry said, like networking is key in law school. You get a lot of your positions through who you know. And so first gen students coming into law school where you don't have parents that can connect you with this judge, and you didn't grow up walking this, partner at a law firm's dog or something like that. You don't come in with those connections. And so I think that's one of the most important things that our first gen students work on is forming those connections. So they bring in panels of alums who come back and have dinners with the students. They have judges events where they bring in judges to meet with students and things like that, so that you can kind of develop that network. But as far as the application process goes, I don't know if I have any more specific advice about that. Just put your all into the narrative pieces.
Yeah, I would agree. There's nothing extra or new or something like that you would need to do. However, I would say don't look at it as if you're first gen or you're a DACA recipient or something like that it's a negative. Use it as a strength, right? You've had to go through a lot. You've had to navigate a lot throughout your life. And so use that as a strength, right? Talk about that as a strength. Kind of frame your, don't be afraid to frame your personal statement or anything with those experiences in mind and with those experiences forward in your application. We understand the situation a lot more than maybe some other states that aren't as friendly to immigrants and migrants and first-gen students and students of color and things like that. So don't be afraid to talk about your experiences, and especially in California at the very least.
Alice, you touched on some of this already, but are there any programs or opportunities for undocumented people who want to apply to law school?
For undocumented students, again, we have support programs at the law school and on campus at Berkeley that can help support students going through the process. As far as the admissions and application goes, same thing as what Henry said, lean into those experiences. I think you have a lot to offer and they can be advantageous in your admissions process. Of course, we don't look at your status or anything like that, or if you're a citizen when we're reviewing applications. A common question we get in general, just because we are UC schools, we are public schools like San Francisco State, is is residency a factor? If I'm a citizen or if I'm a California resident, does that give me an advantage? The answer is no. So that is the big difference I see between the undergrad campus, where it is heavily California residents, and California residents are given an advantage in the process. But at the law school or professional school level, there's no advantage there. So we definitely are not going to factor that in. If you're an international student or if you're undocumented or anything like that, we're going to go on the merits of the rest of your application.
Yeah, we also have a lot of support programs, but that's once you're in, versus anything that has to do with the process or looked at differently or anything like that. But yeah, once you're in, we have a first gen program, we have the EOP, LEOP program, LEOP, so a lot there to help you succeed and find your place.
Okay, moving into scholarship questions. When is the earliest you can apply for law school scholarships?
For us, it's with your application, so there's no separate scholarship application. FAFSA is FAFSA, so look at the deadlines for that, but merit-based scholarships, it's with your application.
For us, we have actually a lot of partnership scholarships, affiliate scholarships. And then also, one thing that you need to think about too is, what kind of money do you have left when you're applying for FAFSA? A lot of the times, at least for graduate programs, I'm not too sure about law schools, it's mostly graduate loans, since most people max out on their grants in undergrad. So those are things that you really need to factor in when it comes to making this financial investment of going to graduate school or law school.
I think ours is a combo of just your general admissions application is going to serve as your scholarship application. And then there are a couple of scholarships, the Opportunity Scholarship for first gen students that I mentioned, and also our Public Interest Scholars Program Both of those are full tuition scholarships, and they do have the December 15th deadlines. So if you're applying to either one of those, you do have an earlier deadline. Other than that, most students get aid through just our general scholarship program, which looks at both like merit based holistically on your application and also need. When you're admitted, we would send you our need-based application. So there's nothing, you don't need to fill out FAFSA or anything like that ahead of time in the admissions process.
Great. Berkeley School of Law offered about 50 stipends last year, and UC Law offered less than a dozen. What about these students stood out from the rest of those admitted? I'm not sure if you guys have this information.
Yeah, and the stipend
I don't really know
language,
what stipend
yeah, I'm not quite sure what that means.
We don't offer anything that I would call a stipend.
Yeah.
Do you? I don't know if they mean but then it could mean scholarships, but then that number is off because we definitely have more than 50 scholarships.
Yeah, so I'm a little confused about that one. Yeah.
Great, we all are.
Okay. I don't know.
Well,
Sorry.
you know what? If you have a specific question, email us, and then maybe we could do a little bit more of a dive on what you mean, and then we can have a conversation.
Yeah.
Nice. Okay, how do financial aid awards differ from undergrad? I know, Claudine, you talked about it a little bit, but what would you say maybe for, because you said that the grants rule out a little bit?
Yeah, most students, when they're going to graduate school, and again, I'm not too sure about law school, but most students don't have grants available to them for grad school. When it comes to grad school, I think it's because it's after your bachelor's degree, most of the time it's loans. So they might be federal subsidized, unsubsidized loans. I think that's usually what you have access to. But again, it could be different for every single individual. So I suggest you start doing your FAFSA process quite early as well. So don't wait until the last minute and then you realize that you don't have money, even if you've been accepted to the school of your choice. So that financial planning is such a huge part of any kind of like educational pathway. So I highly encourage students to start looking into it now.
Also from last year's FAFSA horribleness, yeah, let's call that what it is. I would say this year, I don't know if they fixed everything yet. So be on top of FAFSA, submit it as soon as possible, check on it, make sure it's submitted, make sure you have all the information, do it early, don't wait. Chances are not everything's fixed, so.
Yeah. And the other difference is just that it's law school scholarships and like need-based aid process is much more complicated and difficult to go through than what you might be familiar with like an undergraduate level. Because like I went to UC for undergrad and like I filled out the FAFSA and then it generated like, here's your Cal grant, here's like what you're eligible for, and that was sort of it. The law schools don't have anything like that where there's like one form you're going to fill out and they're going to generate a package for you. That's not how it works. For example, for us, we don't use the FAFSA at all except to establish loan eligibility. We've developed our own like in-house financial aid applications. Most law schools that I talk to are the same. They've developed their own form that you're going to need to submit, but you don't have to do it until you're admitted. So you're not going to be filling out however many applications you're submitting, but you'll get a lot more information from schools when you're admitted on what scholarships look like, what the timeline is, what they look at, and if there's any forms you need to complete. But it is much more difficult to navigate, and every school's timelines are a little bit different. So in that way, I think it's a little bit more stressful than the undergrad process.
Yeah, that Excel sheet where you kind of put everything down and all the deadlines, yeah, that's going to be your best friend.
Yeah.
And then, I guess disbursement too, don't expect your money to come way before the start of classes. Sometimes it's, I think similar to undergrad, it comes in usually while you're already in school. So don't expect like money in your pocket as soon as the FAFSA generates your eligibility.
Thank you. Okay, so we're going to move on to the rest of the questions, and then if we have time, we can open it up for a Q&A if we didn't get to your questions. So let's start with recommendation for non-traditional law school path students. I think, Claudine, you might be able to answer this, guys.
Can you ask the question again?
Yeah, recommendation for non-traditional law school path students.
So within the past 10 years, I think we have been noticing a lot more students who are interested in gaining knowledge in the law, but they don't necessarily want to go through 3 years of law school. Now you're asking, like, who are these people? They're coming from everywhere. They're coming from people who are in HR, people who are in education. We have people who are in health policy. Literally any position that you want to get or you already have, where you interact with the law in some sort of way, those are kind of the new graduate school Masters of Studies in Law students or MSL students. And I think it popped up as an alternative because when you go to law school, your end goal is to be an attorney. If that is not your end goal, but you still want to stay in the legal field, what can you do? And that's why we do have the Masters of Studies in Law. So it brings people from all types of backgrounds. We have people who have become like analysts at BlackRock versus somebody who's been like a CEO of the Boys and Girls Club in Contra Costa County. So, BlackRock, nonprofit, completely different sectors, but they really benefit from getting a master's program in law.
There's also paralegal studies here, if anyone's interested. And we can talk about that more later. The next question is, after receiving a master's and bachelor's degree, how long would it take to finish law school?
Well, for us, it's 3 years full-time, so we don't have nights and weekends, we don't have a part-time program, so it's 3 years for us.
Ditto. 3 years, no matter if people come in with MDs, PhDs, we don't give any credit for those, unfortunately. So 3 years.
Yeah. We also have people who are who want to do the master's program first to kind of dip their toe in the pool to see if it fits well for them. So just also keep in mind that if you do a master's program, it's unlikely you can transfer those units into the law school, but you may use those units to waive out of certain classes, but they're not transferable. So after undergrad and then you take your master's program, you still have to do the full 3 years.
Okay, now we might have some biased answers here, but are online institutions as credible as in-person institutions, i.e. like Purdue?
I've never been in those programs, so I'm not sure. However, didn't the ABA have something where you need to be in person for most of? Isn't that something I thought I heard? I don't know. I didn't do a whole lot of research because ours is in person, so in full time.
Yeah.
Oh, do you mean like for law school?
I believe
Oh, is that what the question is asking? Oh, okay. Yeah, I wouldn't be able to answer that question.
Not sure.
Definitely like any law school that you're considering, if they're ABA accredited or state accredited, look at their bar passage rates for the state you want to practice in and their employment rates for people that are working in JD only jobs, like working as attorneys, and look at that if that's something that you want to invest in.
One thing I can say is that it's really difficult to kind of solidify a network or a community online, right? So part of law school an important part of law school is to make those connections. And so it'll be even more difficult if it's just purely online. So just think about that. And then if it's online and it's like from a different state, think about that as well. Who are you connecting with in your classes? I think that human piece and that interaction and that connection is really, really important in law school. So.
Okay. The next question is, I would like to know the different types of law practiced in law school. For example, I know that there's criminal and immigration, but I also heard that there's collusion, etc.
Collusion.
I'll let you guys think. I'll start off. That's a funny one. So our MSL program has a bunch of specific specializations, but one of the specialties is you could actually create your own. So we had a student who wants to open like a women's I guess similar, just kind of like a women's resource shelter type thing. So we created like a family law specialization for her. So it's a little bit more flexible with a master's program than I would say with a law program. Like,
I know, I'm still trying to wrap my head around collision accidents. I mean, that's a type of, so yeah, I can't address that specifically, but I think we get questions a lot about like, what type of student am I going to be in law school? And that's, again, I think a big difference between law school and what you're used to in undergrad, where you declare a major, you're given a list of like, here's your classes if you're a poli-sci major that you need to complete. Law school is not like that. Everybody that's going to law school is going to get the exact same degree, a Juris Doctorate. And then for the admission standpoint, you're not admitted into a specific program or track. So nobody is going to be like, I'm an international law student and I'm an environmental law student. That's not really how it works. In your first year of law school, you're going to take the doctrinal law classes. This is pretty much set at every law school, like JD program. You're going to take, and those are sort of your foundational classes that are going to help you as you start to take more elective classes. So you're going to take torts, contracts, civil procedure, criminal law. I'm missing one of them. Property. Ours isn't tax, ours isn't property, but anyways, the list is in the brochure that you have or on the website. So you take those, and then in your second and third year is really where you get to choose what classes you take. So if you come in and you're super interested in collusion or whatever it might be, and you want to just take those classes, you can do that. If you come in and you really don't know, you just know you want to make a difference in the world, you want to be an attorney or you want to advocate for people and you want to experiment with different classes, you can also do that as well. So you could take classes across the board in public interest, in business law, in like international law, whatever it is. And you kind of figure it out along the way, what you're interested in. And I have sat in on so many alumni panels with alums that graduated in the 70s, 80s, 90s, and almost all of them have changed, like drastically changed the type of work they did from what they did when they graduated law school. So I was at one recently where one of our alums is like the VP of Sony Music in LA, and he started out as a criminal defender. So, and he was like, yeah, I wish I would have taken more like, corporate law type classes, because I kind of focused on criminal justice area and then like ended up pivoting to something else. So it's very common in law to change career paths and work in a different area as well. So don't like kind of box yourself in too much to like being a specific type of student.
Yeah, I'd like to add too that the law is always changing. Right? So even stuff that you've heard about before, that's very common, immigration, criminal law, whatever. We had to make up a whole new law for AI, right? For like self-driving cars, right? So like all these things are new, right? So even if you haven't heard about it, if you've thought of it, maybe we're gonna have to come up with something. So you could be that person to come up with something, right? So that's the great thing about the law degree, is that you're not in one area only. You got a Juris Doctorate, you pass the bar, you can be a lawyer. Unless you want to do patent law, then you need a patent bar exam. So that's the separate thing. But besides that, you're qualified to practice law. So that's a huge umbrella. So don't worry if you haven't heard of something or whatever. It's like, well, then you can make it up.
Okay, last question before we open it up for everyone. What kind of support is there for students seeking internships over the summer, especially in their first year of law school?
Yeah, every law school is going to have like a careers office, career services, and so they are going to be putting on events throughout the year, especially your first year of law school, to tell you about what those opportunities are, whether you are looking to do public interest work over the summer, maybe you're looking to do like an externship in a judge's chambers, maybe you're looking to try to work at a corporate firm over the summer. They will have programming for all of those. They'll bring in panels of people to talk you through that, and they'll also walk you through what the timeline looks like. They'll do resume reviews, they'll do mock interviews with you. So every law school, like our aim is to get you jobs over the summer, to get you, or whatever opportunity you're looking for. So we all have those services available.
Yes.
Yeah, so we have, for our school, we have like a career development office. We also have like an externship office. Always do a lot of networking. Some of our adjunct professors are also like leaders in the industry. So many different types of pathways if you are looking for that, like externship, internships, student organizations. We also have like experiential learning departments as well. So I think if you're looking for something, just join kind of a group, or make sure you just utilize all the resources that the different law schools have to offer.
Yeah, and it's actually part of our curriculum as well. So the experiential learning side is the hands-on side, or the research side that'll get you a job in the future. So because it's built in, you have to do these things anyways. So we'll have a lot of resources dedicated to that.
All right, so in the last 15 minutes, I'd like to open up the floor if anyone has any questions, or anyone on Zoom has anything to mention. Yeah.
Hello. This is the first time I've heard of Master of Law, or at least it's not the same as the LLM, right?
So the LLM is really for attorneys who want to get their master's. The MSL is for students who, main criteria is that you graduate with a bachelor's degree, and then you can be admitted to the MSL program.
Okay, so I was like wondering, like, because I've been doing research into like law schools and stuff. Like I'm interested in law school and stuff, and like interested in law and stuff. But my end goal is not to be
An attorney.
an attorney.
Yeah.
I guess you say. Like, so I was like interested. I was like, how do you know like accreditation wise and stuff? And is it separate from the law school?
So it's a graduate program. So it's a master's program. It's not a law program. Although it is in law, right? I think there's a lot of confusion, and it's essentially why this program came to be is for students such as yourself who, again, don't want to do 3 years of law school. Law school is also a huge financial investment, so this is only a year program, full-time, or you can also do this part-time compared to, I'm not sure if Berkeley is also full-time. Full-time. So most law schools are full-time. This program is available as part-time, as most of the students are actually working adults, right? So they have their day jobs, but they still want to get their master's degree. But again, it's for people who are like in administration. We actually have a huge partnership with SFGov. So we have a lot of people who work at like Civic Center, and they work for like SFPUC, or the attorneys, the SF attorney's office, who are like admin, or maybe they work at some sort of capacity that's not an attorney, but they still need some sort of like higher education in order to move up in their field. Or we have people who are trying to pivot into law, but again, it's specifically for people who don't want to become attorneys, but still want to stay in the legal field. Not everybody who works in the legal field is an attorney. There's so many people who support those positions. There's people who are directors of like policy. Like Henry was saying earlier, IP law is huge. We have a lot of people from tech companies who work in policy departments. So we have like somebody from Netflix right now. We have somebody who is from DocuSign. And all these people are looking for a better understanding of the law. They work with a lot of lawyers, but they're not lawyers themselves.
Yeah, actually 2 questions, if that's okay. I'm graduating next semester, and I plan on taking a gap year after. And then after my gap year, I plan on taking LSAT and applying to law school. So, what would the process look like for that in order to submit my application on time? As a way, so since I'm graduating next semester, I would want to attend law school, and I think, would it be like 2027, if I remember correctly? I think fall of 2026, sorry. So what would the timeline for that look like in my particular situation, if you know?
Yeah, I think, Alice, you mentioned it, it's a year in advance. So that fall-ish time frame is when you should probably apply, the year in advance. So 2026, 2025 fall, you can apply that build in some time to pass the LSAT. It takes 3, 5, 6-ish months to study for the LSAT, and kind of plan for that too.
Thank you. And then my second question is in terms of legal writing. So I'm not a poli-sci major. I'm coming from child development, so I don't really have much experience with criminal justice classes and political science classes. So I don't really have much legal writing experience on my belt. And I was wondering if there were any resources for non-political science or criminal justice majors like me to get experience in legal writing. Just to prepare for, potentially applying to pre-law internships over the summer.
I guess it would go back to what I said earlier about we don't expect you to come in with legal writing experience, and even poli-sci majors, probably what your writing essays are is very different than what is considered legal writing. So we actually have a class that everybody takes. It's one of our doctrinal classes in your fall called Legal Writing and Research. It's about 15 students in that class, so you get a lot of individual attention, and the professor will walk you through how to do legal writing, because most people are not familiar with it, particularly those that are humanities majors. The style of writing essays is going to be very different than what you're going to be doing in law school. So there's really no preparation specifically I would recommend. Other if there's a specific legal writing class that's offered that you want to take, you could take it, but most people come in with no experience with legal writing.
Yeah, and that's what law school is for, is to train you to do this, and so you're going to get trained. You're going to. So don't worry about it ahead of time. If there's something specific, like Alice is saying, like a legal writing class, okay, sure, you could try taking that ahead of time, but just know that other than that, I would say kind of keep an open slate, kind of blank slate going in. You don't want any bad habits either, right? So don't think this is sort of like it, so I'm gonna take it thinking it's gonna be like a legal writing class, and then you take it and you're like, wait a second, now I'm in law school, it's completely different, oh my gosh. So don't feel that pressure that you have to do that ahead of time.
Thank you so much. If anyone is interested, though, you are able to take paralegal studies courses along with your undergrad, and there is a really great legal research and writing class that you can take if you want to get started on that.
Perfect.
Great.
So I have 2 questions. First question would be, if I'm looking to take admission in fall semester 2025, when is the best time to take the LSAT? And if you guys provide any classes for LSAT, I've heard certain universities, they have some resources where they do provide classes, So that's good.
Well, I think you had mentioned.
Actually, our LSAT event. So we are going to have LSAT study groups, and so there's actually one tonight if you want to. There's a QR code over by the pizzas that's being hosted by test masters, but that's also what we're having at this event is our LSAT study group.
Sure. When's the latest we can take the LSAT? I think you mentioned
January.
January for Berkeley, but for us, technically, you could take one in June, and that is fine. However, just know that there are very, very few spots left, if any. It's based off of human behavior, right? Did everyone say yes, they're going to come, or do we have a handful of spots left? But really, it's going to be only a handful of spots. So I wouldn't wait that long. I would aim also for December, January at the very latest.
And just to make sure, I heard most of the law schools, they only take admission fall, right?
Most law schools, yeah.
Yeah.
I can't think of any that's spring.
Not that I know of.
Yeah.
That's about it. Hey.
Sure.
Generally, what do your students or alumni, what have they done during their gap year that probably supported their application process, or didn't support it? What would be the best use of a gap year if you're planning to go to law school?
I guess if you really can get a legal position of some kind, even if it's a legal secretary or a paralegal or volunteer in the paralegal
Legal
office.
resource
I'm sorry?
center. Legal resource center.
Oh, yeah, like here? Yeah. Yeah, any of those would be great. But as we mentioned earlier, not everyone can do that. You do have this wonderful center here, so I would say lean on that and lean on everyone who works here because they're a great resource and then they can help set you up. But any sort of experience, that would be great. Yeah.
Yeah, it doesn't have to be legal. If you go on our website to the class profile page at the bottom, we have like all of the past lives of our student. And so we list some of them there. And it is really like across the board, all different things that they've done, journalists, somebody was like tracking sharks or something as like some research project. We've had students that have done Teacher AmeriCorps or AmeriCorps programs. Those are great if you're looking to do some sort of like public service work. There is not going to be one thing that we're like, wow, this is amazing. So really it's just whatever you're going to do in your gap year, do what it is you want to do in that time. So I wouldn't recommend a specific thing over another.
I'd like to make a suggestion to enjoy yourself. Law school is such a rigorous process. It might be like the last year of freedom you have. Literally just enjoy your gap year. Don't go too crazy, but definitely enjoy your free time and the time that you have back for yourself.
Yeah, just to reiterate, if anything, read. Yeah.
So I have a question in regards to being a full-time student. I know some law schools recommend that first-year law students don't have a job. Is that something that applies to your schools?
Well, it's actually an ABA rule.
Yeah.
So I would assume it applies to pretty much every ABA accredited law school, at least for the first semester of law school. You're barred from outside employment. So any full-time program that's ABA accredited is not going to allow you to work. At least for your first semester of law school. They've done a lot of studies over the years with students that are doing outside employment and they just don't do as well in law school or end up leaving after a year or don't do well in their courses. So that's why there's that rule. And then I think for spring, at least for our school, I think spring semester, you can talk to our dean of students and get an exception. I don't know what the rules are regarding that. And then it's very common for second and third year students to work. It's really just that first year that we want to preserve for your law school experience.
Yeah, for us, it's first year. You're not allowed to work unless there's an exception as well, but that's really hard to come by. And it's a case by case kind of thing.
Yeah, it's definitely like not a lot of people are getting that exception.
But soon after that summer, after that first year, like people are working, so yeah.
I was looking through the Berkeley brochure. It was talking about the top 6 feeder schools, and I just wanted to ask if where you go for undergrad affects your application. Has any weight in your application?
Not as far as students coming from Ivy League schools or the top universities are not going to be given any extra weight in that process. In fact, a lot of students from Ivy schools, there's actually a lot of grade inflation happening. And so we look at that as well. So we really are, I think when you're thinking about admissions, it's not really a comparative process. So we're not looking at an application this person went to SF State and this person went to Berkeley. So based on just those things alone, the Berkeley person is better. I think it's based on your circumstances, what you took advantage of that was offered to you and how you excelled at your particular school. So I can definitely say, for both of our schools, we absolutely have students coming from state schools, from small schools across the country. You don't have to be coming from a top name university.
Transfer students too, as in from community college to 4-year. Yeah, absolutely.
And I think we have a few Zoom questions.
Yeah. So the first one is, they thank you for taking the time to speak, and their question is regarding the personal statement. If I want to incorporate a poem into my essay, is that allowed? If so, how should it be formatted?
Technically, it's allowed.
I wouldn't recommend it.
Yeah, don't do
that's kind of in our common no-nos is poems. We've had people do haikus. We've had quotes and things like that. Generally, it's very, very difficult to incorporate those in a well-written way where it makes sense. So most of the time where we've seen those, or I've seen some where they do like a series of like short stories, and then I'm reading like 10 different stories in their personal statement. Anything that's beyond just a regular essay format is generally discouraged.
But think about it this way, like if you're in an interview, are you gonna start with a poem or a haiku, right? No. Please don't, right? So I think at the end of the day, where is my attention, right? Is it on Emerson, or is your name Emerson? I don't know. But
It's Leslie.
Oh, Leslie. Okay. So Ralph, whatever Emerson dude, right? Am I thinking about that person, or am I thinking about Emily, right? So think about where our attention is. Think about where that personal statement is coming from, and that's where my focus should be. It should never be on somebody else. Right?
I think for us, for the master's program, it's important to convey some sort of professionalism. Not that a poem is not professional, but it's like Henry said, it's like if you were submitting like a cover letter for a position, you would probably try to leave out the poem, just as a tip.
And then our last question.
How can admitted law students get involved with legal service projects in law school? And is that process selective?
So we have something called student-initiated legal service projects. We call them SLIPs. They're very unique to Berkeley, though, so I wouldn't say. So I guess service projects just means pro bono in general at all law schools. But for our school, it's very common. Almost 100% of our first-year students do those pro bono projects. There's a whole orientation that you go through where they explain what each project does. There are 40 projects this year, and the time commitment required. And then there's an application process, and you can definitely join a SLIP. It's not guaranteed that you join the exact project that you want to do, but you definitely get the opportunity, not only for first year, but throughout your time to do like pro bono work.
Yeah, we have a lot of opportunities to do hands-on work and pro bono work. A lot of it is in the community that we're in. We're in the Tenderloin by Civic Center. And so there are a lot of people who need help just outside our door. And so we have a lot of programs from low-income tax clinics to eviction help to like a bunch of stuff. So we're very much a part of our community, and a lot of it means that we have a lot of advocacy that we need to do to help people around us. So yeah, lots of opportunities for that.
Cool. All right, thank you guys so much for coming today. Thank you everyone for attending the event.